This episode was co-produced with the Swiss Entrepreneurs Foundation, a non-profit organization which aims to support startups and promote the Swiss ecosystem capable of commercializing innovative technologies. Over the next few weeks, we will be releasing a total of 6 bonus episodes. These episodes will focus on the Swiss Entrepreneurs Foundation's Upscaler program, designed to help rapidly growing startups, as well as on the SWESA, the Swiss Entrepreneurs and Startup Association, which represents all companies and institutions that want to further optimize the economic policy framework in Switzerland. To find out more about the Swiss Entrepreneurs Foundation, visit swissef.ch. And now, on with the show.
Competition is normally considered something negative. In our case, I would consider it, let's say, 80% positive and 20% a problem.
Welcome to the Swisspreneur Show, a podcast about startup stories and hands-on learnings from experienced entrepreneurs. Here's your host, Sylvan.
Hanspeter, a very well welcome to the Swisspreneur Show. It's a pleasure to have you here today.
Thank you, Sylvan. It's my pleasure to have this interview.
And Hanspeter, you are the chairman and co-founder at Anybotics, a company that provides solutions for a new level of mobility and interaction capabilities for robots to step out of the factory floors. Your core product is the highly mobile-legged robot called Animo, and we're going to talk all about that, about your company and about your story in a second. But before we do so, I want to start off with the first question. What actually motivated you to start your own company in the first place?
Well, I guess the motivation was what you were always told it should not be, namely that we had a cool product. It all started at ETH, and there was a group of people developing or doing development on these four-legged robotic devices. And that was really the initial motivation to say, let's make a commercial product out of that. Let's look for applications and then bring this to the market.
Fantastic. And can you elaborate a bit more the specific problem that you actually solve with Anybotics?
Yes. With an autonomous robot that can walk basically anywhere where people also can go in nature or in industrial environments or urban environments, there's an enormous amount of potential applications one can imagine. So one of the tasks in the beginning was to actually focus on one specific application, to identify that one and then also really focus on it. So we scanned a bit the various ideas over the first year, and then we quickly decided that industrial inspection is the application that we're going to pursue. This means that you have a robot that can autonomously walk through an industrial plant and do various types of inspection tasks.
Fantastic. And what actually led you to that conclusion? Was there a positive feedback from the potential clients, or what led you to the conclusion to focus on that market?
Yeah, I would say there were mainly two things. One is what you just mentioned. Indeed, we did get a lot of contact. People identified us on the web. They saw our videos, etc. So we got a lot of feedback, and quite a large portion of that feedback actually referred to some type of industrial plants and some type of surveillance or inspection tasks. And the second reason is that we considered this to be a sufficiently generic application applicable in many different industries, because the basics of inspection, they're always the same. In all type of applications, you have the same type of pressure gauges, the same type of liquidity level measurements or sensors, etc., etc. So you can have kind of one set of capabilities, which then is applicable to many different industries.
Got it. And in order to actually, make such a revolutionary product as you have it, make that a reality, you also need a big team, or an experienced team, better said. So What experience does your team bring to the table to actually also build a successful company?
Yes, today we have a team of approximately 55 people, but that's of course not how we started. At the time of the foundation, we had 9 founding parties. One of them was ETH, 2 of them were professors at ETH, and all the others, the 6 remaining ones, they were actually working in the company. Now, 5 of these 6 were technical specialists. They had been doing a PhD or a master thesis on this specific device, on the 4-legged robot. And one was kind of an old guy with a lot of business experience, and that was me. So we had a combination of very deep and rather broad technical competence, and then also kind of an experience base of someone that had been working for a long time in the potential client industries.
That for sure sounds like a winning combination, I would say. And you recently also made the news with a very important milestone, your financing round. So please talk a bit more about that milestone, but also about other milestones that you recently achieved.
Yes, well, this was actually a very kind of successful year in terms of milestones to be reached. In August, I think it was in August, we were awarded the Swiss Economic Forum Award, which was of course a very big and interesting achievement for us. Then, as you were referring to, we just concluded about 2 weeks ago our Series A financing round, where we had collected the nice amount of 20 million Swiss francs, which should secure our financing now for let's say, the next 2 to 3 years at least, and then a next step may need to follow, but that's definitely a big milestone.
Fantastic. And also congratulations on both of them. I think these are really big achievements.
Thanks a lot. We were very happy to do that within this rather difficult year with kind of Corona affecting everyone and everything. I was also very happy to have a lead investor that was a Swiss entity. It was Swisscom Ventures actually who took the lead on that financing. And that was very positive also for us.
Why are you happy about that constellation? Because what we also often hear from guests is that they say Swiss investors are great to start, but then also if you want to build an international company, you also need to get international investors as early as possible, basically.
Yes. Well, Swisscom Ventures is the lead investor. And then, of course, we have a number of additional investors, some of them private, one company, corporate, and also some venture capital organizations. There is a pretty large US company that has invested also in us. There is a very important US private individual also, whom we also have on the board. So we have a very strong link into the US and into also Silicon Valley. So we try to have that combination. I see the need for both because all our customers practically all our customers are outside of Switzerland, of course.
Right. So in that regard, you probably also face some international competition if you're, operating in an international market. So what does the competitive landscape look like on the market side?
Yes. That depends a little bit on whether you look at it kind of from the application point of view or from the product point of view. If you look at it from the application point of view, how could you solve this industrial inspection by autonomous machinery? Then there are, I would say, 2 different type of solutions that are available. One type of solution is wheel-based or track-based vehicles that you find some of those that can also move autonomously, that have some inspection intelligence, etc. So there's maybe half a dozen of those companies that are working on that. And on the other side, you can also solve, to some extent at least, the same problem with drones. And then, of course, you'll be flying in the air. You probably have an optical sensor, a camera that you're flying around, and maybe also some intelligence. Now, both of these applications have some, you could say, some advantages, some disadvantages compared to a robot that is based on legs. And I don't want to go into the details of that. But if you then look at the legged robot competition, then it becomes rather sparse. There is really one company today that we consider a very serious competitor, but I put that in apostrophes. I'll tell you right away why, and that is Boston Dynamics. And then in addition to Boston Dynamics, you find probably another 2, maximum 3, that are typically spin-offs from universities and are in a very early stage, and we're probably a few years ahead of those, but they can also develop into serious competitors. Now, why did I put that into apostrophes? Competition is normally considered something negative. In our case, I would consider it, let's say, 80% positive and 20% the problem. The positive part is that we have such of a futuristically looking solution that it's extremely helpful to have someone else who can actually also show that this is working and this is working today. That's not just to play around in the future, but it's realistic. It's reality today. So I'm very happy that we have at least a second player who is about at the same level as us.
Fantastic. Yeah, then you can actually educate the market together and win more clients overall and enlarge the market instead of taking market shares from each other.
So it's not only about percentage, it's really about the total value. And the market's going to be big enough for 2 or 3 players, absolutely, there's no doubt. And I'm happy if we help each other, even without coordination, of course, but just by the fact of being there, we both help each other to kind of educate that market, as you were saying rightly.
Absolutely.
We know interruptions are rude, so we'll make it quick. The more positive ratings we have, the more people we can reach. So if you want to hear more from the Swisspreneur team, give our show a rating on Apple Podcasts. It only takes a minute.
So we heard about the milestones and the achievements. So, from the outside, it always looks like sunshine and rainbow, but I'm sure that you also had some very tough challenges to overcome. What was the toughest one that you had to overcome with your company so far?
Yeah, of course. I mean, this is, we're basically moving from one struggle to the next. And then in retrospect, we celebrate the achievements. But that's, I guess, the normal situation if you really start up a new venture. You asked me about the kind of the most difficult, the toughest challenges. I would say maybe I would probably mention 2 on 2 different areas. One was this financing round. This was extremely important. We would not have survived forever if we would not have found a solution there. So this was extremely important. We put a lot of emphasis in it. And it took also quite a while, and it absorbed, as usual, the CFO, the CEO, myself as the chairman, over quite some time. So that was definitely one of the toughest challenges. The second one is more kind of, I would say, is on the technical side, maybe just to get our last product out on time, out to the market, have it delivered. We did the announcement rather early on the basis of our first prototypes, but then unfortunately after the prototype tests, there were some additional problems popping up, which we had to solve before we delivered our first customer deliveries. And that was tough. That led to some months of delay and some need for explanations, etc., some excuses. That was definitely a big challenge also.
Yeah, and that's a seriously bigger challenge, than just having a software startup where you can then just deploy the next line of code to fix it. You are actually dealing with hardware, and that's a whole challenge by itself, I can imagine.
Yeah, we're actually dealing with both. When you look at the structure of our roughly 40 developers that we have today, about half of them are software developers, and the other half are hardware developers, both electronics and mechanical hardware. So we have the problem that we need to cover a very large breadth of knowledge, and that's a danger also. So we try to work with partners so that we can focus on kind of as narrow as possible, but still a very broad area which we need to cover.
Right, that makes sense. And recently, you were also part of the Upscaler program, which is organized by the Swiss Entrepreneurs Foundation. What would you say was the most valuable thing to come out of this Upscaler experience for your startup?
Yes, we had this very nice experience with the Upscaler program. The way we used that was that we had actually prepared kind of our first version of the pitch deck for the financing round. And then I got in contact with Peter Stähli, and he offered that, or he informed me about the offer that they have, namely to organize a group of specialists, of experts from the venture capital side who would be willing to test our pitch and to give us feedback and to allow us to further improve then until the final version that we would then finally go out with. And that was a very valuable exercise we did with them.
I can imagine. Can you talk a bit more about how that cooperation, also collaboration with the experts, looked like and worked?
Yes, the basic idea was that we would not look at them as potential VCs, but kind of as neutral experts. So be open, tell everything, tell also where you still have a problem, how would they address that? And that was extremely helpful. It actually worked like that. They provided us open feedback. And then still, in addition to that, of course, since they were all venture capitalists, or at least very closely related to that, they had some ideas on how they would actually want to benefit from that too, and how they would want to continue with us. And that led to some interesting introductions to other companies, in some cases even to a check by one of the venture capital companies who was represented in that group. It didn't work out in the end. We were probably a bit too early for them. So that was a kind of a secondary benefit, but the first benefit was really to get a very neutral and very competent feedback on our pitch deck and on our story.
Got it. And why do you actually choose to participate in the Upscaler program in the first place and not choose any other program or option out there?
Well, to be honest, I didn't really make a big comparison. I saw that offering. I knew Peter Stähli, and I saw the kind of the names of experts that he could potentially make available. And I figured, yeah, this is exactly what we need. And so we didn't really make a big market research to find out the best. We jumped on this first one, and it proved to be the right one.
Fantastic. So you mentioned the advantage of the experts that you had access to, and also the sparring sessions there. What were other advantages that you enjoyed during the Upscaler time?
Well, I don't think we went through the whole Upscaler program, if I know that program, or if I remember that program correctly. We basically did only the very last part, which was really this check, which is an exercise. It's basically a 1 day's exercise where they charge for it also, which I think is right. What is for free is not worth anything typically. So that was quite okay. So we did really only this last part of the whole program.
Got it. Makes sense. And now looking back, you said it was like the exact right fit for you and your company. So usually not every program makes sense for all the companies at all the stages, right? So if you had to recommend, when does the Upscaler program actually make sense? Is there any specific target that you should reach before you actually join the program? From your experience, what would you recommend there? When does it make sense?
I think it really makes a lot of sense kind of right before you're going out for the first financing round. So if you then go through the whole program, they can help you some more. But then you get close to actually finalizing your story and your pitch deck. And for that, I think up to that point, so shortly before you actually do your financing round is probably the right point in time to do that.
Got it. And we at Swisspreneur, we are huge fans of the Net Promoter Score, because usually the Net Promoter Score is just a great tool to assess the quality of something. 1 is like, you're not going to recommend it at all. And 10 is you're very likely going to recommend it. So if you had to give the Upscaler program a rating between 1 and 10, what number would you choose?
I would say it's probably an 8. It's definitely a high ranking. I was very happy what we got. And then kind of the delta to a 10 is in the very ideal case, of course, we would have profited even more from let's say the people, the neutral experts that we had in that group. But that, as I said, was really only kind of a secondary objective. So the first objective was definitely fulfilled.
So meaning with the room for improvement, meaning also getting the investors directly from the program, basically.
Yes. But that's, again, I mean, there is you have to take that carefully because that cannot be the main purpose, because then you start to lose the neutrality, which is one of the benefits also. So it's a bit of a slippery slope there.
Right. Yeah, it's a double-edged sword in that regard.
Yes.
So now we talked a lot about the past, where you come from, where you started, but also about your recent milestones. And something you're also very curious to learn more about is the future. So what are your future plans? What can we expect from you and Anybotics over the next 12 months?
Yes. We have, as I mentioned, we founded the company about 4 years ago. We now have the Series A financing. And of course, we had to tell that story also. What are we going to do with that money now? The main milestones that we have in front of us is the launch of the first commercial product, because all the products that we have sold so far and where we did also tests and rentals were still what we would consider prototype products. And the first fully commercial product will come out roughly around mid next year. So that's definitely a big milestone. And then the proof of the pudding will come, because then only we will be able to use that robot really within the production processes. So far, we were able to use it at the customer site for tests, maybe some development activities. Starting later next year, we will need to use it and want to use it in customers' processes. And from then on, it has to scale up. And that's going to be a very, very critical phase. Is the market already accepting that? Does it work well enough? And then does it really scale?
Right. So definitely an exciting year ahead of you, I would say.
Absolutely.
So now we talked a lot about your company, but we are also curious to learn more a bit about you as a person, Hanspeter. So therefore, we prepared some rapid fire questions. The first one for you to select from: thinker or maker?
I think I'm more the maker. I like to take up ideas from others, even very daring ideas, crazy ideas. But then I'm usually not the one who comes up with the crazy ideas. I'm the one who makes them happen afterwards.
Great. Leader or team player?
Well, that's not a contradiction. I have difficulty to distinguish those. I would say both. I feel that I have a leadership drive, but then kind of a team player approach in this.
That makes a lot of sense. And also related to that, holacracy or hierarchy?
Definitely lending more towards holacracy is at least what I would say. And if you ask the people who need to work with me, you might get a slightly different pitch on that.
Fair point. And if you had to choose between niche player and global leader, what would you choose?
Definitely global leader. That has been my whole history. I've been working in many different countries also. And looking at this startup, we indeed have the target to develop a global leader here. We see a big potential that we can play a big role in the future here.
That's very promising. And I also think it would be great for the ecosystem to have such a global player, eventually also with an IPO one day, who knows?
Absolutely. That's still my dream, that we can actually do that. Speaking about the ecosystem, I think Switzerland has a great ecosystem of robotics, and I would definitely include all the drone activities also in that. It's largely hinged around the technical universities, and I do think that this can become a very important pillar for the Swiss economy in the future. And we want to contribute to that.
That would be fantastic. But that Swiss economy has been hit by COVID lately, and therefore we also have two COVID-related questions for you. Yeah. Do you consider yourself a COVID winner or a COVID loser?
I think we're pretty neutral on that, more neutral than I was afraid of. We have seen some delays. Customers are not really willing to decide these days. So we don't get final decisions. And then, of course, we have the difficulty of not being able to travel for on-site tests, etc. So that's more on the loser side. There's no real COVID winner aspect, I would say. We've seen Boston Dynamics running around with some robots who can spray disinfectant, but that's not the type of market we want to address. So if anything, then maybe rather loser, but it hasn't been a big deal for us, really.
But still, despite COVID, you were able to close your financing round. And I think that's also an achievement to celebrate, for sure.
Absolutely.
And the last one in that regard, COVID credit, yes or no?
Yes, but we haven't used it. So we actually got it awarded. It was an impressive exercise. I mean, when it was announced, it was like 8 o'clock in the morning. And I think at 11 o'clock, we had the account with the amount on it. So it was amazing how quickly that went. And that was with a very large bank, one of the Swiss banks. And that was really impressive. And then, of course, we were happy that we didn't really need to use that credit. So
talking about Swiss efficiency, about the whole process, that was really impressive.
Yes, absolutely, an example exercise.
Hey, Hanspeter, these were all my questions for today. Thank you so much for taking the time. I'm really sure that we will hear, read, and see much more about you and your company, and we wish you all the best and lots of success for the upcoming challenges.
Thanks a lot. We'll make everything that we can to make that happen, that you will hear a lot more from us. And thank you for the interview then.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you did, you can support us by rating our show on Apple Podcasts. This way, we can reach an ever-growing number of aspiring entrepreneurs.